Hi, I'm Bernie Sanders. I'm running for president.
Glad to meet you. Name's Tigger. Tigger. That spells Tigger. The wonderful thing about Tiggers is Tigger's a wonderful thing. The tops are made out of rubber. The bottoms are made out of spring. Yeah!
I'm not leaving the Conservative Party. It's left us.
Resigned from the Labour Party. I cannot remain in a party is institutionally anti-Semitic.
We've taken the first step in leaving the old tribal politics behind.
This is the What and the Why podcast for the week ending the 22nd of February 2019.
Everyone's scared of Tiggers. Who are you?
Welcome to the What podcast. The Why has left to set up a new party which will have wobbly jelly, cowardly custard and lashings of ginger tears. But in the spirit of our bourgeois centrish ambitions, the door is always open for the Why to come back. Splitters. Yes, indeed, a 7-strong army has indeed been taking their time right behind the backs of the Labour Party leadership. But this week they split with the cry of, I'm going to fight them all, and sit as independent MPs in Parliament. They duly took seats on the back benches, well away from the Labour lot. They were followed by an 8th, and then 3 Conservative MPs asked if the rest wouldn't mind just shuffling up a bit to make some room and said, sorry, excuse me, oh, was that your foot? Sorry. And they joined them on the back benches. So, the first lot, are they more, let's say, this? Or are they more, let's say, this? Are they the Magnificent Seven, or are they actually political dwarves who are actually going to fade away? To answer these questions and more is Dr.
David Wayward.
You've taken my line, David.
Well, I had to, didn't I, after last week?
Yeah, Dr. David Wayward.
Yeah.
Dr. David Waywell, also known as Dr. Waywell. And you are a doctor, aren't you?
Yeah, not the right sort of doctor.
Oh, I don't know. Your week?
It's been busy.
It's all right, we don't care. Moving on.
Oh,
no, we do care. No, we'd care. How was your week?
It's all right. It's been busy, just very busy. You know.
And the Battle of Wounded Knee?
Yeah, she had a Staples out yesterday, so she's been walking around a little bit, amazingly. So yeah, but it's just been me trying to catch up with a lot of work after 2 weeks of hospital visits and running around. So
this is Waywell's War of Battle of Wounded Knee and your mum, which we're all very glad.
Thank you.
She's on the mend.
Thank you.
Now to the split. For those listening who are not fully into British politics, the biggest political party in Europe, which is the British Labour Party, the opposition party, well, 8 of its MPs walked out this week. They're going to sit as the independent group, otherwise known as the Tiggers, joined by 3 Conservatives. They are now equal second, third largest bloc in Parliament with the Lib Dems. David, what's going on?
I think what's going on is something that should have happened about 5 years ago, isn't it? I mean, I seem to have spent the last 10 years predicting that this would happen because we've had a total misalignment of British politics. The parties have been occupying ground, and that isn't necessarily, where the consensus of the a lot of the members are. So the British Labour Party has moved back over to the left, where it traditionally always used to be under, Foot, etc. leaving a lot.
I think it's gone further to the left than Michael Foot.
Well, yeah, but I mean, what I mean is it's moved back to where he traditionally was after Neil Kinnock kind of realigned it more,
And then the Blair,
and then Blair,
yeah.
and it was kind of they occupied that centrist ground where it was kind of more of a pragmatic approach to politics, where they compromised a few of those ideal.
I'm with you 80%, David, but this isn't Michael Foot in the 1980s. I mean, yeah, there was the militant tendency and all the rest of it, but no, this has gone further, with things like foreign policy vis-a-vis places like Venezuela, vis-a-vis attitude to NATO, the whole anti-Semitism thing.
Yeah,
I think, put it this way, I think if this was an 80s Foot-style Labour, I don't think those 8 Labour MPs would have gone.
Okay, well, you think they've gone further? Yeah, they might well have gone further to the. I mean, I barely remember Foot. So to me, it's just a sense that they've gone back. You know, when people like Derek Hatton, and I noticed yesterday George Galloway suddenly back in the news. When those people start to suddenly dominate the debate, you think, well, we've gone back to pretty back to.
Yes, no, in that sense we have, but I think the leadership of the Labour Party is significantly to the left of even Michael Foot, and that's why they've.
Well,
gone.
in which case, why have only 7 or 8 of them quit? Because
people have careers and mortgages to pay.
Yeah, no, it's the same as America with the Republicans, you know.
Well, I would like to come to that if we get a chance. Now, some of the debate is about whether if you resign your seat if you resign from your party, should you then stand in a by-election?
Well, actually, before we answer that, it'd be only fair to sort of quickly touch on why the Conservatives quit, because it's easy to sort of view this as, it's a problem in Labour, but no, the same problem has been happening on the right with the Tories. UKIP came in, they were stealing votes from the Tories, so the Tories were forced to move over to the right, leaving a lot of their centrist MPs feeling like they weren't being represented in their party. So you've had two parties, which really were 3. You could argue, the centrist bloc, the left, and then the right. So it's important to point out, especially to people who don't live in this country, that we do have the same problem on both sides.
Yes, but I completely agree with everything you said, but I think there's always been 3 wings to both main parties, exactly as you say, those sort of on the left of the Labour Party, those in the centrist, and those on the right of the Labour Party, and ditto for the Conservatives. But I think in both examples, they've both gone further to the left than they've ever been, and the ones on the right, especially on the Europe issue, have gone further to the right.
Exactly.
And this is why this. Well, actually, there's my next question for you. Is this a seminal moment in British politics?
I think it could be, and even if it isn't, it's at least moving us. I mean, I've just finished a piece yesterday where I was arguing that at least whatever happens now, the politics have moved on, because we've been stuck in this. The problem with Brexit is our politics have been moribund for how many years? We've been having the same arguments in the Tory party about the European lot, arguing about it. Yeah. We've had the same arguments in the Labour Party about whether there should be a Blairite party or go back to their roots. At least there's a sense of honesty about this.
I think, well, to answer my own question, I think it is probably a fundamental realignment, reflecting the the reduction in tribal politics that we have in the country now, reflecting the splits also that we have now, reflecting what's going on in other countries. I'm not comparing this to Macron, but Macron is an example of how the old order isn't always working. I mean, the Socialist Party in France is just almost disappeared. I think probably this is what's going on now in the UK.
Yeah, I think the question now is whether it can be sustained in the sense of they need money. Are they going to need more? They're going to need more people than. How many have they got at the moment? 13 or something?
No, 11, which is the same as the Liberal Democrats. I mean, but there are going to be more.
They really need to become the third party, because that opens up money, doesn't it?
It does. Well, look, there's some various things that might happen. Let's say they went up to 20. That's a serious block. It makes them the 3rd biggest block in Parliament as independents. But of course, they do have to face by-elections and re-election this year, next year, who knows. Secondly, the Lib Dems themselves are having internal conversations about, do we collapse ourselves into this block? And there you have a nationwide structure, a political structure, which could be used and grown. And one of the other bits of the jigsaw is that there are people with money, and I know this for a fact, who are waiting. They got serious money, but it's a bit like sometimes buying a football club.
Yeah.
You could just lose the lot very easily, very very quickly if you get it all wrong. And of course, at the moment, the only thing holding this new bloc together in Parliament is that they're all against Brexit.
Yeah.
They would have to formulate other policies.
Yeah, I think the thing is about Brexit is that it has coalesced around Brexit, but I do also think that this is a bigger problem a bigger issue because Brexit wasn't, as we talked about before, wasn't entirely about Europe. It's about this this thing we have in British politics where the Tory party have become like the party of the individual. They're not really interested in society or the state, and Labour have become totally obsessed with the state, and people are being pushed to choose between these two visions of life. And I think there is room for somebody who is sort of small government but interested in the state and social welfare and those kind of issues.
Oh, well, the biggest one for me is capitalism with a human face.
Yeah,
social welfare,
exactly.
Understanding that the problems at a level that the Conservative Party seems to have completely forgotten about. And if the centrist party can pull that trick off, I believe that in Britain, more than in many continental European countries, I think that the space for a centrist party is actually wider here than it is in some of the countries. Briefly on by-elections, do they have a moral duty, having been elected as a Labour or a Conservative MP, to now say, OK, I will go back to the people?
Well, I understand. This is one of those questions that if you're on the wrong side of it, you totally think they should, but if you're on the right side of it, you think they shouldn't. I think this goes back to a conversation we had either last time or the time before when we were talking about the nature of representative democracy. Edmund Burke did a speech to the voters of Bristol, I think it was, where he said, "I'm not sent to you don't send your MP to London to follow your views, but to have an independent frame of mind based on reason and the arguments and everything." So I think maybe that's what they're actually doing. I mean, I know Anna Soubry, I think, said that it wasn't her who changed her political views, which you could argue maybe she has, but it's the party that have drifted to the right. So I think if you're giving them 2 or 3 years to sort of state the case, I think that's entirely reasonable. It's part of our democracy. And it's not like they're not going to face an election at some point.
I reluctantly agree with you.
Yeah, I think the optics are bad.
I've been vacillating on this all week, thinking to myself, no, maybe we should have a law. If you put it through Parliament, if you quit the party, it triggers it automatically. But then I thought, no, I am falling back on the Burkean argument. By the way, briefly, on the Labour Party, the leadership being seemingly quite relaxed about losing 8 of their MPs.
Well, it suits the purposes, doesn't it? Because they want they want it to be a far left party.
Well, I've been arguing for more than 2 years now that the people that have taken it over, some of them are clever enough to understand that this could end up with halving the vote. I don't know, but it doesn't matter because they were people that, I mean, Andrew. Forgive me, I know his name off by heart and I've forgotten it. Andrew, who was one of the Labour leaders' advisors, was in the Communist Party of Great Britain, until 2 years ago, and now he's in the leader's office. He's probably smart enough to know that he was in a political party that would never get anywhere, but now he's in a party that even if it halves the vote, it's still 50 times bigger than anything he could have achieved elsewhere. And the people that have come in from the Socialist Workers' Party, who spent miserable Wednesday nights among 6 comrades in a horrible pub somewhere, even if half the Labour Party leads, that's still 50 times bigger than anything they could have achieved. And all the Trotskyist enterists, because the Trotskyites, they learn this from age 2 at their mother and father's knee about entryism and taking over. So again, they're still left, and this is the real point. Even if the Labour Party split much more than it has done, they are still left with a brand name, because it costs a lot of money to get a brand name.
Yeah.
They've got the infrastructure, they've got the computers, they've got the data lists, they've got the physical buildings, which are worth millions of pounds around the country. And so even if they halved their vote, and I'm not saying it is going to happen, but I think they can take that into account, it is still more than they ever thought they would have.
Yeah.
So,
well, I was going to say, two points about the thing about the Labour Party is people do in this country. I mean, we talk about this because we're interested in politics, but a lot of people just vote for who you traditionally have always voted for and who your parents voted for, and you might know nothing about politics, but you know you're a Labour or a Conservative family.
Yeah.
Second point is this is the problem. I think that why are they called Tiggers, by the way? I've seen that, but I've not actually had a chance to look it up.
It's something to do with the independent and group.
Oh, okay. Well, I see it now. Yeah, so obvious. All right. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't remember Andrew Murray's name.
Yeah,
that's his name, by the way. The fellow who was in the Communist Party.
The problem that they have now is the question is what are they going to call themselves? They can't really. The danger of folding the Lib Dems in is that the Lib Dems have become a bit toxic after the coalition. So it might make sense for the Lib Dems to do that because I don't know whether they're ever going to regain the ground they lost. And
well, with respect to their leader, who's a very nice man, Vince Cable, but certainly not until they change the leader.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to move us along hurriedly and very briefly onto your favourite subject, American politics, because Bernie Sanders says he's standing, or rather 77-year-old Bernie Sanders, as he's given his full name, it would appear. The only real question I've got for you is, he is a democratic socialist. That's how he describes himself. You might have noticed in Trump's State of the Union, he said, we are not going to have socialism in the United States of America, which I thought was a really interesting thing to end the State of the Union on. I'm thinking that he will define the 2020 election along those terms. Now, is America ready for a democratic socialist? After all, they're not Norway.
Well, I don't think they are, but I think that to sort of simply say that they're not going to have to have socialism in America it's just him pandering to a group and a worldview, which is, I'm not sure America's quite in that place anymore. I think there is.
Well, I think he's seeking to define the next election.
He is, terms. But then again, I think Bernie's possibly past it in the sense of there are now candidates who are a little bit more. I hate to say the word attractive, but they do have more appeal, and I think they're going to copy some of.
Name one.
Oh, well, I think
Hillary Clinton.
I don't think Hillary will run, but it'll be Biden, Kamala Harris. Booker's been quite impressive, more impressive than I expected him to be. So I think
I mean, there's going to be a big thing, but he's declared. And by the way, I would remind you, he got more in pledges. I think it was $6 million
maybe
in the first 24 hours than any other candidate that's announced so far, which is about 6 of them, I think. Right.
I will say whichever.
We've got a packed agenda, but go on.
I was going to say I think whichever Democrat they elect, I think will win. I just think the mood there is for Trump to face a heavy defeat. So
okay.
If a socialist gets through, they could get a socialist president.
We'll see. Last week's podcast this week, briefly, Shamima Begum, we both agreed in the teeth of opposition for the majority of the country that she should be allowed to come back. Now she's had her British citizenship revoked by the Home Secretary. Do you agree, David?
No, I think he's playing politics with it, isn't it?
Yeah. I also suspect strongly that somebody in the Home Office knew quite well that there was not a shred of evidence that she was actually a citizen of Bangladesh. Bangladesh has now said, not one of ours, even if your mum and dad were.
Yeah.
She was a British citizen
never
born in the
claimed
UK. So it's quite possible that some politicians might even have known this was happening. But hey, they looked pretty tough when they announced it.
It reminds me of, there was a Steven Spielberg film a few years ago called The Terminal, which is about a bloke who got trapped in this kind of limbo.
Yeah, Tom Hanks,
about this guy who got trapped in this. Go on.
It's a true story. I interviewed the gentleman.
Oh, did you?
Concerned. He was originally Iranian.
He was
stuck in one of the two Paris airports. I think one of them.
And it was the British government again, wasn't it?
Yeah, he lived there for. It wasn't just the Brits; it was French as well.
No.
He lived there for a couple of years. Tom Hanks played him in the film.
His mother was British, and the British wouldn't allow him in because.
Right.
So it was like the British were refusing him citizenship. He'd been thrown out of Iran, so he was actually one of the few people to ever have no nationality, because that's not actually allowed by the UN, is it? It's in the human rights.
That's right, although there are now hundreds of people. Anyway, Shamima Begum, who has continued to make herself look a most unpleasant character, doing herself no favours whatsoever, it's going to be a legal challenge. But again, I think, given that most of the country supports the Home Secretary in this, I don't think he loses many brownie points, because he has said he's looking tough. the legal process could take a long time, in which case she's still stuck in limbo. And let's face it, most people think, I don't care.
But it's the old saying about hard cases make bad laws. I mean, this reminds me of, do you remember Lord Longford, who, all through my teenage years, I always used to seem to he always appeared on TV defending the worst cases. You think, why would anybody defend that? But this is a perfect example of it. You know, it's a case where your gut instinct tells you, you know, you're on the side of the Home Secretary, get rid of her, we don't want her back and all that. But this isn't about that. This is about a difficult law and laws which further down the line will be applied to you or me or anybody.
Yeah, and which other citizens, especially minorities, could have citizenship revoked in certain circumstances. But, you know, there's you and me. We'll see Liberals again. Right. She does have the right to appeal. She will appeal. This one will run and run. Things we lost in the mire. More than usual. Australia's Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, says a recent cyber attack on the Parliament was most likely carried out by a foreign government. Now, he didn't say which government, but here's a little clue.
You go over to China. China. You take China. China. I love them. China. I have to have my China. China, because...
I've no idea who it was. There's no evidence. But last year, Australia banned Huawei's equipment from its 5G data networks, suspecting it has ties to that government we've just heard about. This is a different story, but Australia has got it in for a certain country. Pakistan's ambassador to Afghanistan said any Indian retaliation against Pakistan over the recent Kashmir bombings would harm ongoing peace talks between the United States and the Taliban in Afghanistan. So it's interesting that he's connecting what is a Indian-Pakistan issue to the Americans and Afghanistan. 44 people were killed in the bombing. That's the highest toll for decades. This does suggest that Pakistan is pretty worried that there really might be an Indian military response, and so they're trying to get Washington to talk New Delhi down. The Syrian Democratic Forces are holding hundreds of ISIS foreign fighters, and they've warned that many may escape if other countries fail to take them back. Are you listening, UK Home Secretary? Germany and France have agreed to form a separate Eurozone budget. So onward staggers the euro? No, because lots of other EU states, including the Netherlands, will say, I don't want a Eurozone budget, thank you very much. Oh, and China now. China has reportedly established a military outpost in eastern Tajikistan, near the border with Afghanistan. If it's true, well, they're not half growing a military presence in Tajikistan, that particular country. Right, a story you love, David. Predictive text on steroids.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, you know when you dab into your phone and then it, you know, so you put 3 words in and it comes up with another word that's got nothing to do with what you're talking about, but it's predicted that is what you mean. That one?
That's one. Yeah. It's a bit like the Google emails, which started trying to complete your emails for you. You know. Yeah.
I know. So someone says something to me and it says, "Yeah, absolutely fabulous."
That's right. Yeah.
No. You know. Anyway, a new artificial intelligence system is so good at writing text that researchers won't release it onto the market for fear of how it could be misused. This is a non-profit AI company. They're called OpenAI. Elon Musk is one of the backers. So it can write itself page-long responses. It can do a dissertation. It could do a fake celebrity news story. It could declare war. And it can write books, which I thoroughly disapprove of. Now, brilliant example here, David. So all they put in, I mean, they've put in a whole bunch of stuff, probably thousands of books and whatever. Yeah. And then they fed in this sort of Lord of the Rings type thing. All they put in was Legolas and Gimli advanced on the orcs, raising their weapons with a harrowing war cry. And then they said to the computer, right, your turn. And the computer then added, the orcs' response was a deafening onslaught of claws, claws, and claws. Even Elrond was forced to retreat. You're in good hands, dwarf, said Gimli, who had been among the first to charge at the orcs. It only took 2 words before their opponents were reduced to a blood-soaked quagmire, and the dwarf took his first kill of the night.
Yeah.
That was a machine that wrote that.
That's scary. That is scary. Because this is one of my big bugbears in life is the author James Patterson, who dominates bookshelves with rapidly written bloody crap, with him and his legion of army of like.
James is not here to defend himself.
I need to.
Actually, no, you are allowed to say things like that. It's opinion, isn't it? Yeah, go on.
He's worth about 750 million. He's publishing about 5 books a year. When they're all.
Well, he told me your Secret Life of Monks was really good.
Yeah, sure he did. Never asked me to write a sequel, did he? James Patterson and David Wayward.
Sorry, anyway, this is a bugbear. Yeah. Why is it a bugbear of yours?
Because it's the industry of writing, and if AI could do something as well as that, there's some author with a big name who's going to be producing 30 books a year, completely dominating the marketing.
Mills and Boon springs
exactly,
to mind.
Yeah.
I mean, look, there's a skill to writing that stuff. It's a market. It's written in a certain way to appeal to a certain audience. But that immediately makes me think, well, if they can do that with Lord of the Rings, I would have thought they'll be able to churn out Mills and Boon stuff.
And even worse, they'll be able to churn out political news items and
I'm glad you mentioned that, because here's one it wrote earlier. So the prompt to it just said, a train carriage containing controlled nuclear materials was stolen in Cincinnati today. Its whereabouts are unknown. Right. So the AI carried on, and it had the whole story, including details about where the theft occurred on the downtown train line, where the nuclear material was from, the University of Cincinnati's Research Triangle Park nuclear research site, and a fictitious statement from a non-existent US Energy Secretary.
I mean, this is a little bit like the deep fake that we get in with the videos, isn't it? Which, they're all using the same technology or the same idea, which is there's a huge data set out there of previously written texts by millions and millions of writers, in the same way that there's loads of video footage of certain actors taken from every angle. And if you have AI clever enough to mine that data, you can create variations of that sentences, because words, it's called collocation. If you have a word like any sentence is always going to be followed by is, I, any sentence can be, any sentence, the words always belong next to certain other words. So if you can recognize those structures, you can recreate language. And in in the future, they'll be able to create, video footage of presidents saying things they've never said before. And
I do it myself. Manu, rubbish. Things like that.
Yeah.
It's scary stuff. Sorry.
True. Yeah. I'm not. We're playing them on Sunday, so I'm for that.
That's right. I'm heading up to Leeds after this to anyway.
No surprise.
To see the Bolton game. Where are we? I was going to say, remember when you were a kid and you liked a group that nobody else knew about, and so you thought yourself really cool, and it was really annoying when other people heard of them.
Yeah.
Because I was like that with Joy Division.
Yeah.
Because I was a miserable bugger. Still am. Well, it's a bit like that with deep fakes, because I've been banging on about them for a wee while now, and when I give some talks, I usually try and mention deep fakes and give examples. And it was only on Radio 4's Today programme last week, so now, you're going to see a spate of deep fake articles around, which is really annoying.
Well, there's an even more interesting technology, because Adobe have created a way of, you can type a sentence in and you can make any person's. So if you want Obama to say it, it will sound just like Obama. Now they've not released.
No, that's that's the ones I give. There's a brilliant example of Obama saying stuff about Trump and then saying, of course, I really wouldn't say that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because it's done by this actor, and then the actor, you see his face. I mean, you can just about, if you're really, really looking closely, think there's something not quite right about this. But this is 2019. By 2021, you won't be able to tell the difference. Right, moving on to letters to the editor, a new feature this week.
Oh.
Yeah. This is from Jim Harvey. You bastard. I think he meant you. I have really enjoyed your excellent books, and I've almost finished reading them all. But since I chanced across your podcast, the voice in my head now sounds like yours instead of my own. It's a bit like reading the book of a film or vice versa. Not only that, but I caught a cold within hours of listening to you saying you could transmit one via the internet. Keep up the good work, and do let us know more details of the times you've been beaten up and shot, as briefly mentioned in your Who page. That sounds fun, and constitutes more than enough prepaid karma, as far as I'm concerned. Jim, you clearly fully understand this podcast. Thank you. Spam email. This one's for you, David. Can you explain?
Hang on, was that the entire letters to the editor?
No, there are many more, but they asked him a question, insert song here.
Oh, okay, sorry, go on.
Which, I'm coming to that, and I've got a bone to pick with you.
All right, go.
Anyway, spam email. Hello, my name is Jack, and I run Lead Generation on Steroids. Pretty self-explanatory what that we do. Well, actually, it's probably Lead Generation on Steroids, but, it's not pretty self-explanatory because it might mean Lead Generation on Steroids because it's spelt the same way. Anyway, pretty self-explanatory what we do. Smiley emoji, which annoyed me.
God.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm giving away free copies of Marketing Secrets Black Book, a 300-page guide that explains how one company took their business to 100 million in revenue in just 3 years. You can download it here. I did not click on the link. If you have questions, you can email me here. No, you're all right, Jack. Otherwise, have a good one! ! What's all that about?
It's just diet books, isn't it? It's self-help nonsense. It's promising everybody the world based on 5 simple rules.
No, but why is he giving away free copies? I mean, what's in it for him?
Well, the free copy will only be a sample of something bigger, I suppose, or they'll be selling something, or there'll be some kind of Viagra to be purchased, or there'll be some.
Really? How much? No, sorry, I don't care. Sorry. Okay, yeah, I mean, I kind of figured, but I just wanted a bit more about, it's clearly a lead on to something else, but
it's what's been going on for donkey's years, isn't it? It's door-to-door salesmen. They tread the doors every day. Everybody slams the door in the face, but then once in a while they get the dear old lady who let them in, and then they completely fleece her out of her life savings. It's the same. There's going to be some.
I'm sure there were other door-to-door.
Well, I was thinking of the Glengarry Glen Ross
completely
style.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, asked him a question. Oh yeah, that was the bone. So 2 weeks ago, you had this world's greatest comedy asked him a question thing you invented.
Yeah, I couldn't find one.
I actually laughed out loud when I heard it. So, and then last week you killed it.
I was ill. I was still suffering from that damn cold. But then I'll use it again this week. I'll put it here. I'll insert it at this point now.
What, here?
No. Here.
No, here.
Has Tim or West gonna send us some comments? Ask anything but not about pet rodents. Has Tim or West gonna seek his advice? Ask anything but not about pet mice.
Anyway, asked him. Hello from Rob. Hello, David and Tim.
Hey,
question for the pair of you.
I like that order.
Yeah, yeah. Given the recent defectors from both the Conservative and Labour Party are also People's Vote supporters, we've done this. Oh, terribly sorry, Rob. Is their refusal to trigger by-elections hypocritical? And should elections be automatically triggered in these circumstances? Rob, thank you. That was why I brought it up earlier, but then rather foolishly forgotten that you'd written to ask the question, so thank you for that. Although he does make this analogy. If you held him to the Consumer Rights 2015
Oh yeah, I like
Act,
this.
Yeah. So information that is written or spoken is binding when the consumer relies on it. Imagine if David Waywell's The Secret Life of Monks was about the bedroom antics of former LUFC manager Gary Monk. It's not permissible for buying a book to be reduced to the status of a lucky dip, then surely electing an MP shouldn't be either. And I like his analogy, and we both, I think, get it, but we both still think that, no, you elect the person, not the party.
I think when you're buying a book, you're buying a defined thing which is not going to change. When you elect an MP, you're electing somebody who you are saying you have the dynamic right to change your opinion based on the evidence, and we support you because we think you're the person who can make those judgments for us.
No, you can argue. I elected and voted for you because you said you were going to do A. Now you're doing B?
Well, this is the big argument, isn't it? This is the argument whether it's like referendum. It's going back to Burke. Is it a representative democracy, or is it a democracy where the MP must do what the people have told it to do? Two visions of democracy.
I'm still with you. Quick question for you and David Waywell. Do you think the Italian government meeting with the Gilets Jaunes the French Gilets Jaunes, differs from the EU leaders meeting leading Remain MPs, actively seeking to change the referendum result? well, do you, punk?
Do you want me to answer it?
Yes, I do.
Oh, God, you give me all the tough ones. I think it's bad optics. I grant you that, but I think there is a difference, because when you've got the MPs talking to members of the EU, you are both sides of the conversation are democratically elected. I mean, then you get into arguments of whether the EU is democratically elected, but I think it in essence is a democratic organisation, and they're discussing something that both have an investment in and should be expected to be discussing. The deputy MP going into France to talk to people who are not democratically elected and undermining French democracy, that is an entirely different issue. And
I agree with you for these similar reasons. The Italian government was meeting people who have been part of a movement which is extremely violent, as has been the response to them by the state. It's not government to government or elected representatives to elected representatives. And there are significant sectors of the Gilets Jaunes which are extreme right-wing or extreme left-wing and who are committed to overthrowing the government. So it is far more provocative for the Italian government to go to next door to an ally and neighbour and meet those people. So it's not the same.
No.
I think it does differ. Okay, from Charlotte Wells, founder of Curativity. Hello, Charlotte, thanks. Hello, Tim and David. Loving the podcast, thank you. I'd really like to know what you think the best case scenario would be for the UK. This is a difficult one again, so it's for you, David. Best case scenario, if the UK were to stay in the EU, and if we were to actually take the lead on reforming the Union, which areas would we excel at? Who might be a potential leader? What would we do? My immediate response was, well, obviously, as far as we understand, it's not going to happen. It's too late. But just envision it, David. What would we do?
I like how you throw this really difficult one on me, completely out of the blue. I go back to my original statement I've been saying all along. I still don't think Brexit will happen. I just think it's such an absolute mess.
Well, if you don't think it's happening, what is our role inside the European Union?
My argument has always been that we should be inside Europe, working to improve Europe and leading Europe. I think there have been huge problems with Europe, and I'd be the first to hold my hands up and say that it is imperfect. It's certainly the way that they've been seeking closer integration, moving powers away from the individual capitals. I think it would have to be a looser union and stop the incessant urge to sort of unify everything, because it is a union, but it is a union of differences, and we should celebrate the differences as much as we celebrate what we have in common.
Okay, well, I mean, that's pretty much what we've been doing, because we've always tried to put a brake on ever closer union. Look, I did have the advantage, not that I took it, of seeing this in advance. So I was just coming up with a bit of a scenario. Chuka Umunna is the Prime Minister in a centrist government, possibly a coalition government. Yvette Cooper is the Home Secretary, and Anna Soubry is the Foreign Secretary, etc., etc. Right. They commit to staying outside the euro. They would absolutely work against a European Union army, which is slowly coming down the line, and Britain feels very strongly it might undermine NATO. The UK inside the EU would absolutely try to ensure that no more powers were transferred to the Commission. They would continue to press for more transparency, because let's face it, the Commission and other EU bodies are far from transparent and have a degree of corruption and waste which is beyond unacceptable. And also, this is the one that really interested me, because this is going to not happen. We would be a bulwark against an extremist bloc dominating the European Parliament, because I believe that the extreme right may well be the biggest bloc in the European Parliament after the May elections, and certainly without UK MEPs sitting there, there will be fewer people around which to coalesce against the extremes. So, I'm not a big fan of what ifs, But as David thinks we're not leaving,
it's not that
there's a template for action.
I must admit, I've been beginning to doubt it, because I think there is an element of, I think May is pushing us to the edge in order to force it through.
Yeah,
but
that's where you and I have disagreed. I've always said I think we're leaving.
Well, it's not that. Yeah, I just think it's the logic of it. Just is never. I just don't think there's a majority in Parliament in the way that our system works. I would add to what you've just said. I think if we did stay, we would have to really address immigration in a serious way across Europe, and because I think that's been the bugbear. That's the essence of why it's failed.
You must have been to one of my talks. From Julian, I'm rushing on because I would like this podcast to be 12 minutes and you want it to be 3 hours.
Yes, I do.
So I'll meet you in the middle.
Go on.
No, not really. From Julian, I always knew you was the bloke who talked sense on Sky News, cutting through the waffle. Thank you, Julian. In my ignorance, I had no idea you wrote books and gave talks until I saw a flyer for last week's event in Grantham. I went along to it with my son. It was brilliant. Thank you again. Checks in the post. I've now started listening to the podcast. You mentioned the drone operators in the USA killing targets in the Middle East. There are several based near Grantham at RAF Waddington. It's been reported that the operators will now receive campaign medals. I know they're doing a good job, but firing at an enemy from Lincolnshire seems to be a little less risky than those actually on the ground dodging bullets. So, I guess the question is, should they get campaign medals?
Yeah.
You got a view?
Well, I'm sorry to make the rather sick joke, but it feels more like they should have got in-game achievements, because it's more like a video game, isn't it? I don't see how they should get medals, because
do they take their jobs very seriously, and are they not doing a difficult job with lots of psychological pressures?
No, because this is like the use of knighthoods in the UK. Knighthoods used to mean something, and now it's like every pop star who just gets a million-selling album gets a knighthood, it seems. No, I think campaign medals are about bravery and sacrifice.
No, they're not. No, they're not.
You don't think?
A VC is for bravery.
Yeah.
There are other medals for bravery, and then there are campaign medals where even if you were the chef,
I see what you're saying.
50 miles behind the front line,
Yeah.
well, mind you, in Iraq there were no real front lines, but of course, yeah. These are they've already had some of them actually in the past. Operation Shader, the Reaper drone pilots were in the UK and they bombed ISIS.
No, you're right.
It's a campaign medal that everybody that was involved in the campaign.
Yes. I suppose, no, you're right. I suppose that's a misconception I have, and probably a lot of people have, that medals mean something else,
no,
but maybe it's just involved.
A campaign medal is different for the bravery medals like the VC. I would point out that Prince Charles has got 4 medals awarded. No, he's got 11 altogether, but he was awarded 4 of them for being alive while his mother was on the throne.
Okay.
Because, for example, 1953, he got the Queen's Coronation Medal, and that is dished out in celebration of her appointment as head of the monarchy. So, right, you're Queen now, so I'll give the son a medal.
Yeah.
How does that work? Anyway, from Pete. Hi, Tim and Mr. Wayward. Great podcast. Enjoy it every week. I was interested in something you said regarding Macron, which made me think. Do you think the norms in diplomacy are changing? Examples are obviously Trump does it his way, seems to get better results. Salvini, war of words with the EU, that old Tusk cherry on the cake joke at Mrs. May's expense. Verhofstadt digs at the UK, Macron versus Italy, Trump and the UN, Merkel having a dig at the USA, Dutch PM calling the UK small and lost. Yes, Trump and Brexit seems a common denominator, but it does seem to be different times. Is it?
This is an argument I've been making a long time, which is I think politics is sort of blended in with popular culture, and I think when you're living in a TV age where Ant and Dec go on TV and they deliver a message every week, it's not a stretch to imagine Ant and Dec forming their own political party and winning 50% of the national votes. I mean,
actually, they live quite near me. I saw one of them in the restaurant.
Poor thing. Oh, you didn't.
You didn't recognise me.
But you can't tell whether it was Ant or Dec.
No, I honestly couldn't. It's not actually because they look really like each other. They don't. But it's just that I don't really know much about them.
No.
But they seem perfectly nice guys. Where were we? Yeah. So actually, Pete. Yeah, we both agree with you that norms in diplomacy are changing, and I'm not sure they're changing for the better. I quite like some of the more relaxed diplomacy. It's lost some of its stiffness, but the language that people are using about each other is not helping these difficult times. We're nearly there. Last week's podcast this week, You remember we were going through all the films about Mars last week, and the earliest one I could find was from 1910, A Trip to Mars, made by Thomas Edison, and it was about levitating mist and aggressive trees on Mars that aggressed him. Well, I found it, and here's a clip. It's a silent movie.
Have we got copyright though?
It's the way I tell them. Actually, it was a silent movie, but the people that have found it and remastered it have put some,
there's always somebody playing the piano.
But I didn't use it because I then found what I think is the earliest science fiction movie. And this is A Trip to the Moon, Le Voyage dans la Lune, by Georges Méliès from 1902. And I watched it, and it's actually quite good. And anyway, this is a clip from that.
Is that the bit where the rocket goes in his eye?
At this point, they've got some space creatures who seem a little bit like monkeys, and hang on. But then they're captured by other space creatures, which has been quite cool, and taken into an underground lair. Hang on. Luckily they escape, and this is cool. The rocket has got a sort of parachute on it, just like the Apollo's one, and then it ends up bobbing around in the sea. And I'm thinking, wow, this is 1902. And then I looked at some of the comments underneath it, and the actual moon landing happened 67 years after this movie was made, and that means some people who had actually seen the film would have watched the moon landings as well. Can you imagine?
That's the one where where the rocket goes in the moon's eye, doesn't it?
That's it. Yeah.
Spielberg made a really good film about the maker. Is it Georges Méliès?
Georges Méliès. Yeah.
Hugo. It's really worth watching because it kind of gets into the whole history of filmmaking.
Scorsese or
Scorsese?
Scorsese. Yeah.
Hugo.
Yeah. Is there anything you don't know?
No, I've got lots of things I don't know. I just like films and politics and.
Yeah, but I like films, but I'd never even heard of Georges Méliès. Mind you, what had you heard of him because of the Scorsese film, or did you?
No, I did some studied film for a while, and I've read around. I read a book. There's a great book called. Oh God! As soon as I said it, I forgot.
Is it Andrew Murray?
No. Andrew Murray's Guide to Film. Yeah, no, there's great. Like I read one of these great histories of film, and I think it's like Méliès is like really important because it was the first, sci-fi and things. So.
Actually, if Andrew Murray's Guide to Film, now I'm not going to remember this either. What was that fantastic silent movie, a Russian one about the Russian Revolution?
Oh, Eisenstein's.
Yes.
It's
brilliant.
Is it the one with the Odessa steps that was ripped?
Yeah, with that famous thing where the pram is pushed down the steps amid the crowd.
Oh,
I mean, that was one of the things that taught me that despite being made in 1920 and being silent, you can actually watch a whole 90-minute silent black and white jerky film.
Yeah, silent films are great, especially like the Russian. Eisenstein invented this style of editing where he'd show like soldiers and then he'd suddenly cut to sheep, and it's the juxtaposition of the two produces like a third meaning, like soldiers are like sheep.
Well, as a former serving member of Her Majesty's Armed Forces, I take
umbrage.
Great insult.
Yeah.
Umbrage, that's the word.
Yeah.
Although, actually, when I was trying to get myself out, I did a whole bunch of things. I was once caught reciting the Communist Manifesto, standing on a desktop in the night shift. Just doing it, because I was trying to get out and they wouldn't let me. But another thing, I had this poster behind my bed and you're allowed to have posters on the wall behind your bed. And mine was of Einstein, and a quote from him, which said, "He who marches in tune to music has no need of a spinal cord, no need of a brain, because a spinal cord will suffice."
You're making yourself sound like Colonel Klinger out of MASH.
That and many other stories. So anyway, when we used to get barracks inspected, the officer used to come along, And they used to, look, oh yeah, your bed's this, your boots are... And then they used to stop and look at this poster.
Yeah.
And then they used to do a double take, and then they used to look at me. And no one ever told me to take it down, but anyway, I got out eventually. There's a whole other story there about how I got out, and it was Klinger-esque. Anyway, it's that time. Are you ready?
I am. I'm always ready.
Okay. Can you insert an alarm here, please?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because I forgot to get one this week. That's the best one so far. Right, this week's facts are on... Guess what they're on?
Oh, God, moon. The moon. No.
Oh, that... I mean, look, there's no... I mean, you do not know...
I don't know the answer to these.
Of my mind.
No.
Neither do I. So it could have been absolutely anything. It's sci-fi films.
That's close.
But yeah, well, it's cool for you, but if you don't like sci-fi films and you're listening...
I love sci-fi films.
Do bear with this, though, even if you don't. It's also a quiz.
Oh, God.
Right, The Matrix. You've seen that, haven't you?
Yeah, all three of them.
There was more than one?
There was three of them, yeah.
Oh, right. Anyway, which postmodern hyper-reality text?
William Gibson's Neuromancer, I'm guessing. Or Mona Lisa Overdrive.
It's a good answer.
Mona Lisa Overdrive.
Which postmodern hyper-reality text by the French philosopher Jean Baudrillard was required reading for the Matrix cast?
Wouldn't know that one.
Simulacra and Simulation.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Which is not two. It's not two books. It's one book. Simulacra and Simulation. Okay, here's a test. You'll get this one right. The Matrix directors, the
brothers,
the Wachowskis, said that if given Neo's choice, they would both take which colour pill?
Red?
No, they would take the blue pill, the one that allows you to continue believing the illusion.
Yeah.
Director Denis Villeneuve's first choice for Blade Runner 2049's villain, Neander Wallace. I can hear you typing. Stop that. You're not allowed to.
No. I was going to. I'll tell you what I was going to check in a minute, but carry on.
Okay. His first choice for the villain for Blade Runner 2049 was David Bowie, but he died before shooting began. One of many reasons to mourn the great Mr. B. Andy Weir, author of The Martian, says the storm that leaves Mark Watney stranded on Mars is the biggest scientific inaccuracy in the story, since the atmospheric pressure is so low, even a storm like the one shown would do little more than lift up your comb over if you were Donald Trump on Mars. I added that last bit. He actually said it wouldn't ruffle your hair. Have you found whatever it is you're Googling?
Yeah, I was checking whether you can still call them the I can't even say the Wachowski brothers, because they're both sisters now, aren't they? They're both trans. They've made the change.
Can I just say I didn't call them brothers or sisters? I just called them the Wachowskis.
Sorry, I didn't know. It's things have moved on. I hadn't followed their careers post Matrix, so
I didn't realise they had gone down that route. Anyway, the Terminators, I'll be back, was almost never said. In the original script, Arnie was supposed to say, I'll come back.
Oh, right.
Love this one. Remember the Alien?
Yeah.
The first one?
Yeah.
You know when John Hurt's going down into the massive egg chamber?
Yeah.
Before he stupidly peers into...
I find that amazing every time why you'd peer into one of them things.
I don't even peer into my boiled egg, just in case. I mean, anyway. So, you might remember... Sorry, are you well? Are you
I've
okay,
still
David?
got a cold. Yeah.
You all right, David?
Yeah.
Fine. Good. Sure, you don't want to take a moment?
No, I'm all right.
Okay. You might remember, so John Hurt's on his way in for a bit of sort of extraterrestrial Botox, and there's all those blue strobe lights going zhun, zhun. Yeah. Remember that? Yeah. How did they go? They went zhun, zhun. Well, this is a true story. The filmmakers borrowed those flashing blue lights from the rock band The Who, who happened to be testing out lasers for their tour next door to the movie's soundstage.
Wow.
Fact.
Because there's that great, the mist has got a layer of light on it, hasn't it? They kind of descend into
and the mist is only just ankle deep.
Yeah.
Oh, it's such a good film. The Wilhelm scream is a sound effect recorded in 1951 that has now been used in more than 360 films, including Star Wars, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and indeed Titanic.
And I will recreate it now for you.
Thank you. Them, from 1954, Star Wars, yeah, and The Empire Strikes Back, and Indiana Jones and the Temple, and Howard the Duck.
Yeah.
Remember that from 1986? Me neither. Batman Returns, it was in. Reservoir Dogs, it was in. Aladdin, Toy Story, etc. So, why?
Well, I would guess it was a stock scream for a while, and then I would imagine, knowing like the way films have gone, it'd become like an in-joke,
that's exactly,
postmodern.
Exactly
like
right.
If you're going to make a film, you're going to include that scream because it's so characteristic.
Yeah, and the problem now is that those people that now know what the Wilhelm scream is, you can giggle slightly to yourself if you see it in the cinema. But on the other hand, it's got to destroy the narrative because, look, there's the Wilhelm scream.
Yeah, but things like Tarantino films, there's kind of narrative is wrapped up in like your whole history of films anyway, so you're kind of deconstructing the film. That's kind of trendy word.
Finally, and you have to tell me if this is true or false, there's that radio program where they slip in either some falsehoods in 6 facts or the other way around. Right, so movies with time travel are banned in China because they treat serious history in a frivolous way. True or false?
I'd say that's true.
Good guess.
False.
That is true.
Oh, well.
No, it's true.
I just imagine, China's obsessive about its history and also rewriting history. And the power to rewrite history was something that I would imagine the state would want to control rather than allow filmmakers
it's true, and it's a fact!
The only true thing in this podcast, you're going to say no.
Right, actually, I said it was the last quiz. There is one more before we say goodbye. I played the Magnificent Seven music at the top. Can you tell me the film the Magnificent Seven was based on?
The Seven Samurai by Akira Kurosawa.
Jesus. It was from the Seven Samurai by Akira Kurosawa, 1954. And after you say goodbye, and I say goodbye, we can hear just the opening bars of that seminal movie. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
The end is in sight.
A colourful phrase used by a charismatic figure.
This is the Trump shutdown.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless the nations of the world.